Hello. Welcome to Console Room 2023, 10 years in the TARDIS. We are going to be talking about the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. So stepping a little bit away from Doctor Who for a moment, but into a related genre. I think we'd all like to introduce ourselves and then we'll get this panel started. So I'm Chris Coulter, and I'm going to pass it on to Don.
I'm Don Kaiser. I'm treasurer of the convention and on the con committee. But welcome everyone.
I'm Bill Evenson, and I just a Star Wars fan. I got my Empire Strikes Back shirt on. I'm all ready to go.
Welcome, you guys. As I said, I'm Chris Coulter, and I've been coming to each of the cons per my husband's insistence, who's the real Doctor Who fan, from the beginning. And we know everybody who's been involved, and we're very supportive of the con, and I've loved it every single time, even virtually. And I'm actually a local physician. I do urgent care, and Star Wars was actually my first fandom, followed by Star Trek, but I've been kind of dragged into Doctor Who. So I'm becoming more familiar with that all the time. So with that, I thought we might perhaps start with how we came into Star Wars interest or fandom in the first place. And who would like to go first on that?
No, I'll go first. Showing my age, I was a sophomore in college when the Star Wars came out, now called A New Hope, of course, but it was not called that back then. I had a friend of mine who was from high school, and he called me up, after I got home from my second year of college, and he said, "Hey, there's this great new science fiction movie. It just came out. Let's go see it." And I knew nothing about it, right? And it hadn't made a big splash because as you may or may not remember, Star Wars, when it first came out, it came out slowly. I mean, it took a while to build up its fan base. And so I grew up in the Chicago area, and so in the far northern suburbs. But we took the trip down to one of the great big super CinemaScope theaters in Chicago. It was the old Eden's Theater, and it was one of those great big, huge widescreen, right, 70 millimeter film print, right. And we were there during the day, middle of the afternoon on a weekday, and so there was like 6 people in the theater, right? I mean, it was just 2 of us and just a few, and we sat in the 6th row, right? And the screen is literally, the screen is actually is filling your vision. It's that big when you're sitting that close in one of those super giant theaters, right? So you're sitting there, kind of relaxing thing, and you see the credits go by, right? And all this kind of stuff, and you see this little ship go by, right? That's Leia's ship, right? And then you see Vader's ship. Just a little tip comes at the top, right? And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the theater is rumbling, right? Because it's got that super sound system, right? And the thing is filling your screen, and you're just like, oh my God, this thing is huge. It was just great. It was just wonderful experience. And I don't know how it was. I swear to God, this is the absolute truth. I walked out of the theater, and I turned to my friend Jeff and I said, "Darth Vader is his father." And I have watched A New Hope over and over and over again, and I still can't find out why I walked out of that theater saying, "Darth Vader is his father." I don't know why I said that, but I did. I said, "Darth Vader is his father." And he said, "Oh, no, that's not true." And of course, I turned out to be right. But I walked out of the theater somehow. I don't know what it is. Some clue in that the first time I saw it, I knew that Vader was his father. So
that's not true. It's impossible.
So that was my first experience with Star Wars. I saw it like either the opening week or the second week that it very first launched?
Well, I can go next. When I was 7 when when Star Wars came out, showing my age, and I saw the commercials on TV, and I thought this doesn't look very good at all. I have no interest in this whatsoever. This looks like something my dad would watch, like Star Trek, and I got no time for any of that business. So my parents went and saw it. That I think that first week, but I have no idea really. And my mom came home and said, "You have to go see this movie." This suddenly became non-negotiable, and yeah, I still remember going to the movie, and I remember everything you just said. The ship just keeps going and going. That was a big deal back then. I don't know if people realize how big a deal that was back in 1977. It was an opening statement, right? Lucas had trouble with his special effects company that he was trying to set up that became Industrial Light and Magic, and he had such a vision that it was so important to him. And that opening shot you're talking about, I feel, is George Lucas making a big statement about what he's trying to do here, because it looked real. It looked like a big giant spaceship flying overhead. But for me, I think it was more, Chewbacca and R2-D2 and things like that really captured my attention as a 7-year-old. But it immediately became the most important thing in my life. I had to have the toys. I had to have everything. It took it for 5 years. Nothing else mattered to me than Star Wars. So there you go.
That's great. So we're the younglings, I guess, then, Bill, because I was also 7. Okay. And at the time, I must have been living about 2 or 3 blocks away from the theater where I'm pretty sure I saw it. We were in University of Colorado student housing at the time, at the base of the hill from the university. And at the time, there may be 2 or 3 theaters in town, and they were all singleplexes, I'm pretty sure. And one of the single theaters was the Village Theater on Arapahoe. So at the time, it wasn't the biggest; it was the second biggest screen in town. And I hadn't heard of the movie. I didn't really watch TV. So I'm pretty sure it was my parents who took me, because I think they'd heard the buzz and figured that this is going to be something important. We better have her see it. And I wasn't into seeing movies really at all. I'd been totally mystified at 2001, I think, when they took me to see that. And I think I got dragged to a Woody Allen movie and hated it and fell asleep. So I had no expectations at all. But I was immediately, like you said, it dropped you straight into the story. It respected you enough. Yeah. Okay, there was the opening scrawl that gave a little bit of setup, but boom, there you were, the lights, the spaceship, the action. What is this? What plans? Who are these robots? And boom, now they're on the planet. Immediately captured. And to me, what made the difference to me was the kind of core story arc, the good versus evil, the magical that wizard mentor and the young student, and the dreams to get far away, and then the rebels versus the alliance. And so that was pretty much it. And of course the characters. Gotta love the characters. I was supposed to like Leia. My mom was a strong feminist, and there were very few female characters, as we know, in the first trilogy. So, yep. So I was supposed to like Leia, and it's like, yeah, she's cool. That's fine. Weird hair. I liked Darth Vader. So we didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't get all the toys, but my mom could afford a action figure. So she bought me a little mini action figure of Princess Leia, and I was deeply disappointed. So I wanted Darth Vader, but what I could collect, I did. I got the comic book rendition of it, and the Alan Dean Foster novel, and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So
I really
that's my
like
memory
these.
of it.
I really like how this has started out. We all have this sort of the same memory, like Star Wars, and then it just took over. It just
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It,
Yep.
it seems very organic that way. That it was so good that everybody had to like it. You had no choice.
And you're talking about, Kristen, the whole good versus evil, and of course, uh, Lucas, did base a lot of it on, was it Conrad, right? That did
The yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, but yeah, the book about storytelling basically and history of
right. Yeah.
myth.
The mentors thing, the whole mentor
Yes.
thing. Yeah. The
Right.
hero's journey. That's the word I was looking for. The hero's
That's
journey.
it.
Yep. The
Right.
whole hero's journey. Yep.
Right. In some respects, the reluctant hero who gets thrown into things, and their mentor, and sidekicks, I think, are a little bit more of a modern invention, but quite critical
Correct.
to
Yeah.
this story. Right. And so the simplicity of it was perfect for my age. And as I got older, I was able to appreciate more. I think it was perfect when it hit when it did. And then when Empire Strikes Back hit when it did. I don't know if I would have been able to handle that kind of tragedy as a younger kid and appreciated it as much. But as an older kid, I was hooked. I have to admit, I was going to ask this later, but okay. So for me, Empire is the best of the three. But I still love the other two quite a bit. But as the second movie of the trilogy, Empire actually had the benefit of being able to end on a cliffhanger and being able to have so much tragedy in it, because there was still the chance for redemption. So I don't hold that against Return of the Jedi. And I tend to forgive any perceived flaws in Jedi, because as the third of the trilogy, it has some constraints on it. And I recognize that. And I did also when it came out. So I'd gotten sophisticated enough at that point that I was able to perceive that, to love it despite any flaws.
I remember when I went and saw Jedi, because by that time, of course, it was the line, standing in line around all the way around the outside, all around the theater, right, and in the snow, because it came out, in the I think it was Thanksgiving time, and so yeah, that's what that was my memory of Empire, right? Was that, and of course being proven right that he was his father.
I had never met anyone who recognized that so early.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty good. I saw the movie and didn't believe it. So when Darth Vader said that was his father, I'm like, no, he's lying. No way.
So let's get on to Jedi, since that's our topic de rigueur today.
Do you have any other either of you have any other memories of when Jedi came out and how you came to see it and what your reaction was to it at the time? And I'll add mine as well.
I don't really have a specific memory of Jedi when it came out, because again, it was a couple of years later, and I don't really have any specific memories other than not really caring for the Ewoks that much. But the actual going to the theater and stuff like that, I don't have any specific memories of that. No.
A few years back, I noticed that on Facebook you could put in an event that took place in your life before, in the past. And I thought, oh, cool, I could document my life as much as I want. What's a day that I know something happened? And the only day that I really know that something happened was May 25th, 1983, because it was the day Return of the Jedi came out. I'm pretty sure I didn't see Empire Strikes Back on the day it came out. So I don't know when I saw it, and I don't know when I saw Star Wars. I don't know when I saw Brain of Morbius. A lot of people talk about when they saw Doctor Who, and I'm like, I don't know when I saw it. But May 25th, 1983, I saw Return of the Jedi. It was the first day. and my mom signed a note so I could get out of school sick. And we stood in line. It wasn't a crazy line like came later. I don't know what theater I went to, but I would guess Northtown because I grew up in Blaine. So that's probably where we went, but I don't know for sure. Um, the only other part about that event that I actually remember is the next day I went back to school and my math teacher called me up to the front of the room and said, "So you were sick yesterday?" And I said, "Yeah, I was sick." And he goes, "You went and saw Return of the Jedi, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went and saw Return of the." And he said, "So did I. What'd you think?" He had taken the day off too. So that's my memory of
Oh,
Return of
that, oh, that's a good one. I didn't see it. I'm pretty sure I didn't see it the first day, and I wouldn't have gotten off from school. Is pretty darn sure. So I think I would have been in junior high at that point. And by that point, we'd moved further through the hierarchy of student family housing, and I was now right on the corner, across the street from both the Village Theater complex, which had grown to a fourplex, ooh, and also Man Theaters that had moved in across the other street from that. So we had two shopping centers right across the street. It was awesome for a preteen. And so I could literally go maybe half a block and see like eight different movies. So this was heaven, especially when the prices were lower because I was still a kid.
Sure.
So at the time, a lot of us would go over and we would, at the time I think you actually had to show your ticket right at the theater, at the screen door. So you couldn't go between theaters as easily. But if you stayed in the same room, you could watch multiple movies. So we would do that. And often we'd see movies again and again and again over the course of like 2 weeks. So the Superman movies and, E.T. and the Indiana Jones and, of course, Star Wars movies. So I did that with Return of the Jedi, and I probably saw it like 3 times in 2 weeks, beginning in the first week. So that was probably the first movie I absolutely had to see. It's like, even while it was filming, I'm going to see this. I'm going to see it again and again, even if I hate it. And I loved it. I was sad that at the time it was over because I wanted more Star Wars, of course. I loved the Ewoks. Controversial statement, but my mom made me an Ewok costume for Halloween, and I wore it for at least 3 years. It had real rabbit fur on the face, and I had a stick, and I had the leather things, and it was perfect for Colorado because it usually would be snowing or very wintry by the time Halloween hit. And so my ski jacket was built into the costume. It filled it out perfectly. So it was, yeah, I was very proud of that costume. I don't know what happened to it. I'm very sorry. I'm very sad I lost it. But so that's my memory of Return of the Jedi. I have no major arguments with it, even though looking back on it now, okay, maybe a few arguments, but we can save that for later. How well do we think it's stood up over time, the original trilogy and Jedi? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I can go on that one.
Sure.
I'm with you, Chris. I like Empire's my favorite. Star Wars, which is what that movie's still called to me, is my second favorite. And that, if that could be almost a tie. Empire, this is pretty standard stuff that people say. Empire is considered one of the great sequels. And one of the things that I think is great about it is it's about the characters. The characters go through some really great stuff in that movie. And that's where I think Jedi is always going to fall to third for me. Carrie Fisher is a force to be reckoned with in the first film. And she's pretty much a force to be reckoned with in the second film, as she's sort of falling in love with Han Solo. Han Solo was a great. I just realized I called her Carrie Fisher. Leia is her name.
Yeah.
But all the characters have all this great stuff. They're great characters in the first film, and then they all get great things to do in the second film, and there's all these important things that happen to them. And in the third film, most of the characters have not much to do. Leia and Han, even 3PO, I think, kind of falls a little bit.
Really?
Obviously,
Okay.
obviously,
he rises, but yeah, okay, yeah.
no, that's a really good point. You know, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say that. Actually, when he rises, that's a good scene. But he also becomes maybe a little bit more comedic. I don't know. Maybe that's debatable. I guess he's always been pretty comedic. But you know, the movie kind of rests in a way to me on Luke. It's about Luke. If you're not interested in that Luke story, then the movie doesn't have much for you.
Right.
And I always found Luke less interesting when I was a kid than Han. When I was a little kid, I wanted to play Han Solo. I was Han Solo every time. No one else gets to choose Han Solo, you know. And Han Solo, as people have said in the past, he's kind of neutered in this one. There's really not a lot of Han Solo in this movie.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, for a good chunk of the movie, he's encased in carbonite.
Well, that's true too. Well, he was in the last one too, but maybe not.
Well,
as much.
not until the end though. Not until the end he was, you know. But I mean, yeah. So you know, in the Jedi, I mean, first half of the movie, he's just sitting there encased in carbonite. So yeah, not much he could do here.
And then he's blind for a while, so for his role is mostly comedic.
Yeah.
And then later it's a team effort. So so there wasn't much space for Han to be Han.
And as far as Leia is concerned, I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, you ask yourself, you know, what was he thinking with the whole slave Leia outfit? I mean, just like really? I mean, come on, you know. I mean, that was just, I think, just rude.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. I'm sorry, but I got to say, I was 13 when this movie came out, and yeah, she said you're laughing because you get it. I got it. It did hit me in that way, but it's still also bugged. Even at 13, I was like, this isn't right. This isn't who this character is. This isn't. I loved her character. Trying to remember 1977, you know, the Carter era, you know, the Equal Rights Amendment, feminism. These things were important things that people thought about. These are things that were talked about in my house when I went and saw it. I was 7, so I wasn't, you know, I couldn't articulate it, but she was a force to be reckoned with, as I say. Now there she is running around half naked in the third one. It was very disappointing.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yes. What was he thinking, you know?
She does redeem herself by throttling Jabba.
The good part, I agree.
Yeah, I agree, but
that
still
helped a lot. The rest of it, I was just kind of mystified at the time, going, "Okay, that's weird." But it might be you could picture it as a statement on that. This is not right. This is enslavement.
Yeah,
Jabba's evil. So this will not stand, and indeed it didn't. So I guess that didn't offend me as much as it probably should have. Although I was just thinking at the time, I was mature enough to say, "Man, that must be really uncomfortable to wear."
It does look that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's those pictures. She did a photo shoot for Rolling Stone in the outfit on the beach, and it looks like it's falling off. Yeah, it doesn't look like a swimsuit.
No.
I think it must have been glued in, because that's what they did.
Think so.
But in reality, she might have been one of the more comfortable people on set, because they're usually quite hot
that's
set.
true.
So probably instead of everybody in makeup and costume. Yeah. Do we think the third movie actually wrapped up the storyline successfully for the trio of movies as a whole?
Well, can I back up real quick? You know,
absolutely.
Because Kristen, you asked a question I don't think we really answered, and that is, you know, how does it hold up? I mean, in general. I mean, we talked about some specific pieces of it, but how do you think the movie as a whole holds up today?
I think the crafting of it, of all three movies, really, the crafting of it, the effects, the sound, the story, the pacing, mostly, is timeless. And okay, does it completely hold up against CGI? Almost, because ILM at that point had gotten so good at what they did.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually that was my first career dream. taking slight aside here. I wanted to elope. I wanted to run away and work for ILM. That's what I wanted to do first.
Yeah.
Because I thought that would be fabulous, working with models and working with creatures and working with puppetry and lighting and matte paintings and the whole bit. So I've always loved watching the making of documentaries and every little bit of data I could get about how they did these things and placing the individual lights on the spaceship and whatever the motion
capture
coordination.
Yeah.
It wasn't motion capture, but it was I forget the exact term, but it was what they developed at ILM. Yeah, to coordinate the camera and the ship.
Yeah.
They were so good at that. That I think it will hold up from some time to come, and I can't still believe that it's 40 years. It feels like it was maybe 10 years ago for me. And the story is just a classic story, and it was meant to be that way. And if it seems a little bit simplistic, that's because it is.
Yeah.
The overall political drama they didn't really get into much until the prequels, which we'll say for another time. But I love it.
And you mentioned earlier, Kristen, also, that the end of Empire, it left it open for redemption, and of course that's exactly what happened. In Jedi was the redemption. Vader was ultimately redeemed.
Yeah, so I think that's crucial, because I sort of anticipated what would be a question that someone might ask, and for me on that level, that's where it really succeeds. It's a good one. This was your next question, actually.
Yeah,
it's a great. It does finish up very well. It's a nice bow on the end of the trilogy, and we were around then, so we can remember. It was a trilogy. That was all it seemed like it was likely to be, even though Lucas had done interviews and we had all heard. Well, by then we knew it was episode 6. So by then we knew there was at least something that was supposed to be somewhere. But as a trilogy, it does really wrap up well. And the other thing you had talked about, Kristen, about the special effects. To me, the special effects hold up extremely well because, and it's probably partly at least due to my age, like, that is an interesting thing to me. The reason you wanted to work for Industrial Light and Magic was that they were producing some really cool stuff. And that stuff really does hold up. Yeah, maybe you can see some matte lines here and there, and the Rancor is a puppet. It's obvious that it's a puppet. But yeah, that I don't mind a puppet. The movie's full of puppets. There's puppets everywhere in this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
Yoda was a puppet. Yoda was a puppet, and yet by the end of his first scene, he's pretty believable. It depends what you do with it, and good storytelling and good movie magics will do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, Frank Oz as Yoda. I mean, that puppeteering was, I mean, it was just really amazing.
Anyone else lose it when Yoda bit it in Jedi?
Oh no, you kind of expected that. I mean, again, it was one of those kind of had to happen things, right? So he could go join the Force, right?
It's an odd scene. It's an odd scene to me because he dies without really giving too much detail, and then Luke walks outside and has a long conversation with Alec Guinness, where it's all exposition and it's really not very, very well done.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if maybe a little bit more Yoda might have helped, but I don't know.
Right, but I guess it was a reveal that people in the Force could come back and communicate with you.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Which we'd had a hint of. We had Obi-Wan's voice when Luke was in the cockpit for the Death Star.
Yeah, you will go to the Dagobah system.
But
you will go to the Dagobah system.
That too. Yes. Yeah, that too. Right,
And
right. But it
there
was a
you
Well, and
voice.
learn,
that's
you
well,
know,
and
from
that's the difference. He does come back at the end of the Dagobah part 2 to say, "No, Luke, don't go." But that's it. Whereas then, yeah, by the time you get to
Right.
Return of the Jedi, they
That's
sit
right.
down and I think have tea. It's very it's just not my favorite scene,
yeah,
but
Yeah. The lines were a little, yeah, now that you mentioned it,
still.
were a little stilted.
yeah.
And I just recently rewatched, very recently rewatched the interactions at the Ewok village between Han and Leia. The lines. Oh, poor Carrie Fisher. They just, you can only do so much with acting with lines like that. But so that's where the adult part of me starts to quibble a little bit. Like, yeah, they're getting the necessary information across, but could have worked on that a little bit more. Okay, I still love it. I still love it.
Maybe could have used another rewrite.
Yeah.
Which is weird because
Yeah.
Lawrence Kasdan was the guy who co-wrote. He took Lucas's vision and created Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
Yes.
you'd think maybe the guy can't lose, but in this case, yeah, some of the writing maybe could have gone another round or two.
Yeah.
Right. What did you all think of? Okay, maybe not the Ewoks as they were materialized, but the whole concept of a more primitive tribe, kind of this clash of primitive versus civilized, and then them actually becoming allies and helping the rebels against the Empire. Did that work for you at all?
Yes.
Let's forget the teddy bear thing for a moment, but
Yeah. Okay. Yes. We'll forget the teddy bear thing for a moment. No, there were parts of it that I did like. I mean, there were parts, the some of the traps that they laid out for the stormtroopers. The two big logs that swung together and crushed the speed cycles and all that stuff, right? And things like that. That was interesting. That these primitive people could overcome the high technology, things like that. There was some interesting parts of that.
Yeah,
that's exactly the take I took.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I picked up on that even as a kid. I didn't. It fairly quickly became sort of known or talked about, I guess, in the media. I don't know how I would have known this. There was no internet in 1983, but it fairly quickly became a situation where people talked about the Ewoks like there were toys. Lucas is trying to sell us toys. And when I saw the movie, I did not feel that way. I didn't. Maybe it's true. I don't know, but it had nothing to do with the movie as far as I was concerned. I thought it was a story like you're talking about, Don, about those logs coming in and crushing. Although I got to say, I just watched it again, and the one guy hits the one log and it starts going, and then the other guy hits the other one, and somehow they managed to hit exactly right. And it's always kind of bugged me, like, wow, man, that's got to be great timing. But hey, maybe that's something they do a lot. I don't know.
There must be some big predator that they might do that too often, or
Yeah,
else they've been dealing, or else they've been dealing behind the scenes with the garrison there for a while. But I don't know, surreptitiously maybe, and the Empire never knew what was destroying their equipment. I don't know.
Well, the other part of it is when you watch it, and maybe it's easy to forget this if you've seen it too many times and you know the narrative of we're supposed to not like the Ewoks. But when the Ewoks first attack, the stormtroopers are rightfully they seem sort of amused. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? They don't seem prepared in any way to be attacked by teddy bears. And I think that's reasonable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, it is reasonable. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, the scene earlier, Christian, about where C-3PO is flying around, in the chair, right? Due to Luke's, use of the Force to get the Ewoks to join their side, right? Was an interesting scene too, I thought.
I appreciate how Han is completely getting more and more frightened and Luke and Leia are just, yeah, this is going to be fine. And Leia from the beginning, I don't know whether she immediately realizes the potential, or maybe through the Force realizes that these are going to be benign to her. But her first few scenes with Wicket, um, that's actually one of the strongest things she does in the movie. She's the ambassador, basically the first human that they encounter, the first rebel. So she's completely not frightened of Wicket at all.
Sure. Yeah.
I really like that. That's a really good point, because I said earlier that she's not given anything to do. You're right. She does that. Absolutely. That's a
She
great
does do
scene.
that. Yeah, she's dressed totally non-threatening, but yeah, even without a blaster, she's pretty cool. And
Well,
she did have a blaster at that point. Yeah.
and it was it was interesting, when they were actually they go into the bunker and they're actually captured because there was an ambush, right? And then they're eventually rescued by the
Yes.
Okay,
that's my favorite scene. That's my favorite scene, where they got the walker approaching the bunker, and Han Solo is, okay, stay back, and then Chewie opens the hatch. It's like, yeah. Okay, that's the scene. That's my favorite scene. I don't know why, but it is.
I just watched that too, and I happened to see the special edition. I don't know if it's a special edition change or not, but Harrison Ford has blood on his hand because she just got shot. I never noticed that before, but that's kind of a key, because he holds up his hand like this. He says, "Wait, I got an idea." That's the scene you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
His fingers are red with blood, which is kind of weird, because you wouldn't expect them to have added that as a special edition change, because generally the special edition changes took out stuff like that. So I don't know.
Right. Do you think the special edition added too many things? I kind of felt that it did. I thought that the Jabba Palace scenes now became too busy, and they detracted a little bit from the key story elements of the young Twi'lek dancer getting dropped into the pit and attacked by the Rancor, because your mind is still reeling with all these dancers and singers and audience members and drink servers and all these critters that are now scattered all the way around the chamber. I don't think even half of them were there in the initial version, and I guess as an adult, I just found that a little bit jarring. But that's one of my least favorite changes. I know other people who are quite upset about what they did to the Sarlacc. It doesn't bother me as much, because they added a mouth, or a little, a jaw and tongue and stuff. I don't care as much about that. That's fine. I kind of enjoyed they added a few extra banthas in one scene. That was fine. But I guess less would have been more, in my general feeling. How about you guys? What do you think?
One of the things that I think is an interesting, and I wrote myself down so I can remember about it, was, of course, we've talked about Empire a little bit, remember? And in Empire, although the Emperor is only in one very short scene where Vader is talking to him, right? And he's played by, the great actor Clive Revill in the original movie, but of course Clive dies. And so they got Ian McDiarmid, who by the way, I loved him as the Emperor. He was great. And even in the first three movies, which we don't want to talk about, but I liked his character. I liked his portrayal. He was kind of one of the highlights for me, Ian McDiarmid, as the actor in those movies. I thought he did a good job. And then, of course, we're talking now about Jedi, and one of the things that they changed was, that scene at the end, right, where you see Vader, and remember they changed the they changed the actor to be
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen at the end. Right? I mean,
As the Force Ghost, you mean?
yes, as the Force Ghost at the end.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I was a little.
I rolled my eyes.
Really? Yeah, exactly. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that there's no way. I don't even understand what it means, right? So the only idea that I can think of is when he dies, he's redeemed, so he gets to be who he was before he became evil.
Yeah.
Well, the old man was redeemed, and the young man that comes back in that scene is the evil guy.
Right. Yes.
I don't really.
Exactly.
I can't piece it together. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was one of the things that bothered me the most about the revised edition.
What's funny is that's not because they didn't do that in '97, because in 1997 was the special editions. They hadn't filmed those movies yet, so that release was maybe 2 or 3 revisions down, and now
That's
maybe
right.
past that.
Yeah.
They keep
Right.
making changes. So for me, the thing about the special edition changes was they ruined Star Wars. Just because the usual complaints about Greedo shooting first and that kind of stuff, but mainly to me, that movie, that end sequence where they're going to blow up the Death Star, is a masterpiece of special effects, and they just redid it all. Well, I don't need that in my life. But I think Empire, the changes were the least intrusive, so that movie they didn't ruin it. But Return of the Jedi, I feel like they tried to ruin it for the reasons you guys are talking about. That Jabba's palace, if you look at the most recent version, it's got Sebulba in it. If you guys know who Sebulba is,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They've even stuck him in there. They'll stick anything anywhere. And then at the very end, when Darth Vader is going through his moment of crisis, to be right before he throws the Emperor down the hole.
Yeah.
He now goes, no, and then throws him. And it's like, oh my God, can you stop changing everything, please? We understood how it worked.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's on the special edition changes on Jedi, I think, are all bad. I don't need any of them. And you also mentioned the Lopti Neck song. You laughed when you said it, but it's a better song than what we end up with. I think it's more fun.
I've always enjoyed Lopti Neck. I don't see why they needed to change that. Although the new version is entertaining, and the big lips coming at you is like, okay, fine. The backup singers, that's what you'd expect in a modern movie. Okay, fine. It's a little more slick. It looks more like a really sleazy back room of a casino or whatever. Okay, fine. But yeah, for the most part, I agree with you. It was unnecessary. All the additions.
Sure. I mean, and because of course, by the time that it first came out, like you were talking about the special effects and things like that. I mean, you look at A New Hope, Star Wars, A New Hope, and the cantina scene, right? Where all the background players in the cantina scene, they were people in rubber suits, right? I mean,
it was thrown together. It was totally thrown together, and it was joyous. It was glorious. What was wrong with that?
No, it was great. And I loved the band, right? I love that piece. That was one of my favorite pieces from that movie, as far as the back, as far
I remember
as the
them
soundtrack.
playing it on the radio.
Oh,
that
was
like a single. You could buy the single.
I know it was great, and so I like that, but then of course they started, as you mentioned, as the technology starts to progress, right? Then they started getting away from the men in the rubber suits, and I think that I mean, the way it is now, you as you say, these days you can hardly tell, but you could really tell the difference. I thought the men in the rubber suits were more effective, frankly, than some of the things in Jabba's palace, right? I just, my opinion, and so I'm agreeing with you on that.
Yeah,
I think one of the ways to look at George Lucas's influence on the industry is, at some point he decided he had a great idea for how to change everything, to start filming everything digitally, doing all these digital effects. He's a genius, but he decided to take these movies that were beloved to me and scribble on them.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
and that's how he did it. And he succeeded. The industry has completely changed. He wasn't wrong, but he didn't have to wreck my movies.
Yeah, absolutely. They belong to all of us. Absolutely.
Alarm's
What
going
was I
off.
going to say? There any critiques that you all would have about the kind of the political story arc or the romance story arc or the hero's journey story arc, the Ewoks part of it in particular, sometimes viewed as a commentary on colonialism, and some people really dislike that aspect of it. What do you all think of larger picture stuff?
Well, Bill, you also mentioned that a lot of the political stuff didn't really. It was there, but it didn't really come out so much until the first trilogy. Where you really learn how the empire came to be formed and things like that, right? I mean, so because you had the stormtroopers and you had the bounty hunters and things like that, right? And so you knew, but by the time the middle trilogy, was going on, the empire was fully formed. I mean, one of the things that bothered me, and this has always bothered me, even from the first time I saw it when it very first came out on Jedi, that it's like, where Admiral Akbar, remember, says it's a trap, right? Right, because you have the new Death Star on one side, right, and you have the entire Imperial fleet, on the other side, right? Okay, the Death Star gets blown up. I get that. There's still the damn entire Imperial fleet back there. What were they doing? They could have just, and just like, oh, the Death Star is blown up. Gee, now we're completely impotent. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? The entire Imperial fleet's back there. All they have to do is attack and the rebellion will be wiped out.
Why was there a throne room left on Yavin? Why didn't they just wipe Yavin out? I don't know, but
I'm like, what are they doing? Somebody says, oh well, the Emperor had them all under mind control, and so when the Emperor died, they didn't know what to do. I'm like, what? No,
yeah.
the entire Imperial fleet's back there. They just had to attack. That was something that even though the very first time I walked out there, like, I don't get it. What happened there? And they say, oh well, yeah, they were all under mind control. I'm like, what? Every single one of them was mind controlled by the Emperor? I don't think so.
It seems to me that this is worsened. This problem you're talking about is worsened by the special edition changes. In Return of the Jedi, they blow up the Death Star and then they party a little bit with some teddy bears on,
right, yeah.
And they burn Darth Vader's corpse, and then the credits come up. But in the special edition, everything changes. There's the new. If you haven't seen the Blu-rays, there might be more changes than you even remember. The Gungans are in it. I mean, everybody's celebrating all over the universe. Yeah, it's
yeah. Yeah,
so
even on Coruscant, right?
Coruscant,
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think if I remember right, that's the first time we see Coruscant is 97. The first one of the first changes they made. And it was like, what is this place? They didn't even explain what it was, but we learned later. Anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And I enjoyed those scenes, but it was a bit jarring.
Yeah,
I guess I didn't overanalyze.
Yeah, so I guess I just said they didn't blow up the Imperial fleet, right? I mean, yeah, they blew up the Death Star, but the Imperial fleet's still right there. And especially, you go back and you look at, the latter three movies, which we really don't want to talk about. But my point is that there is still a lot of Imperial people and Imperial troops and Imperial starships that could have just wiped out the rebellion right then and there, despite the fact that the Death Star was blown up and the Emperor was gone.
You could at least, again, before those special edition changes, you could at least make the argument this is a major blow, and they decided to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't watch the special edition with all the celebrating, then you come and watch Force Awakens, the episode 7. They've come back big time. So that makes a bit more sense that way. I still think it's just the special edition that wrecks that part.
Okay.
I think as a preteen, it worked for me because I was still thinking simplistically enough that, okay, yes, the Emperor is the head guy, and of course there's going to be a collapse when he bites it. The way you put it does make me think a little bit now that wow, morale must have been really bad in the Empire for that event to have. And were there no other people?
I'm sorry, that's a big deal. I mean, we watched Empire Strikes Back. How could morale be good? Vader's killing everybody who does. Guys are succeeding, and he's killing them.
Yeah. You don't want to accidentally come under the attention of Darth Vader at any point. That's for sure. And it's certainly not the Emperor. But either that or there certainly were plenty of ambitious people waiting in the wings. There always are under regimes like that.
Exactly.
But there must have been enough confusion that they hadn't realized yet that, oh, this is the time to seize power, guys. Right. Does anyone have any other topics? Of course, we could talk about this for hours. We're all such fans. Any other thoughts about Return of the Jedi? Any parts of it, or the movie as a whole, or the franchise as a whole, without maybe getting into our quibbles about the prequels or the sequels?
You had asked the question about the different arcs, the political arc, the romantic arc, and the redemption arc. I can't remember. I think the redemption arc succeeds, even although if you scrutinize it even a little bit, it doesn't really quite work, because Darth Vader, he's pretty evil. He's killed a lot of people. I mean, he's Hitler, or maybe that's not quite right, but he's an evil guy, and his redemption is maybe a little bit too simplistic. Plus, he just throws the Emperor down a hole, which is a simplistic ending to that situation. And then the romantic arc, I think, is a complete failure. I mean, having a Leia and Han as a couple just sort of sitting at that bunker for 45 minutes trying to figure out how to open the door, I could maybe, that didn't really achieve what it was maybe supposed to set out to do. But I said this at the beginning, I think it still succeeds as in wrapping up that trilogy. And that's why, well, it's not why, but it's part of the reason why that trilogy stands alone for me. The other reason is that the prequels are terrible, but we're not here to talk about that.
No. And the sequels are even worse. So there you go.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
One of the sequels is so bad I probably couldn't even talk about it. Yeah. But I still think the prequels are worse.
Okay.
Do you think that Jedi sets up the sequels well enough?
That is a good question.
Or is there a disconnect?
It's a shame. I think that they could have made one 3 years later. They could have made one with Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. They could have kept making them. So what does it set up the sequels? I suppose so. It's one of the things about it is it's a completely different universe. It really sets up its own. It's not like Star Trek that you would assume takes place in our universe, just in the future, or it's more akin to like Lord of the Rings or something where it's a fantasy universe.
Sure.
And it's it has now finally shown itself to be able to be a universe that you can do stuff, because nowadays they're making good Star Wars, and so like I used to say all the time, it used to be very simple for me. I hate Star Wars because so much of it was bad. By the time we got through episode 3, it was like, well, yeah, it's terrible. Star Wars is terrible. The most of the stuff they were putting out was awful. But nowadays it's a little more complicated, and a lot of it's really good. So yes, I think that's key, that the trilogy set up that universe that now is finally coming to fruition.
Right. Well, and you know, some of the stuff that they're doing now, I mean, yeah, some of it's Drek, but some of it's, you know, it's good. But they're also, you know, they're also expanding the universe. You know, the whole Mandalorian story. I mean, that was, you know, so they're taking baby steps to get out of the Anakin Star Wars, Anakin, you know, Skywalker family arc. You know, I mean, so and some of it's good, some of it's bad. You know, I mean, some of it's amazing. I have not seen Andor yet, but I really liked Rogue One. You know, I mean, Rogue One, I know it was a standalone movie, but there were a lot of things in that movie I really liked. And I think that was, you know, but then you also had the Han Solo in the movie. I can't even remember what it was called, and that was pretty much Drek. You
Solo.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
I'm really enjoying this. You and I don't agree on anything except the original
It's perfect.
trilogy. So I think this is good. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I think
right.
Solo was really a lot of fun, and Rogue One I could do without it.
Oh, really?
So there you
anyone who's not seen Andor, I think if you're in for a little bit more complexity, you're in for a real treat. These are now Imperial characters. I'll just leave it. I can believe more the Imperial characters, why they would be there, why they would stay there, and more of the moral gray tones of the universe.
You know,
I'm now old enough to appreciate that.
No, I intend to watch it. I just haven't had a chance to yet, you know, and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
If you liked the original, the episodes 4, 5, and 6, the Mandalorian, the Mandalorian is a good place to go.
Yes,
because it has the same flavor. Would you agree? Western,
absolutely.
sort of, but same flavor. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's exactly
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
When you say Western, there's no reason to say but. Star Wars was a Western, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. No question about it.
Western and samurai, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Space
right.
opera.
It was all that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, so when I said Solo, I enjoyed Solo. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't a highlight for me. You know.
Yeah, I get that. It also looked like crap. It was too dark.
Yes. Don't watch it on an iPad.
Yeah.
And with that, if there are any final thoughts, we should say them real quick, and we're going to draw this to a close.
Okay. No, it's like Bill said, it's hard to believe that it's been 40 years already since the end of, since this thing was launched, you know, and of course Star Wars is, you know, it's still big business, you know, and I think that it's been interesting that you know, one you know, George Lucas, you know, still had his hand in Return of the Jedi, but that he also, you know, especially Empire, but Return of the Jedi in some ways too. He stepped away a little bit from the, you know, from the micromanaging it, and I think that that's part of the reason why, you know, those are can be some things are a little better and some things are a little bit worse, you know. But yeah, I think it was still, and yes, I think it was a good bow. I think it was a good wrap up for the trilogy. You know, it wrapped up a lot of the story arcs pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think at that point, the way I would say it is George Lucas had collaborators that he could trust and work with. You know, he was still working with Gary Kurtz in the first one, and his wife Marcia in the first one, and Irvin Kershner was a big addition in Empire. You know, by that point, he's got this whole crew. Some of those people aren't as involved in Jedi, but he's got the everybody shows up knowing what they're going to do. And I feel like by the time you get to the prequels, a lot of that magic is lost, and it's more George. Just it's you watch those making of documentaries on the Blu-rays and DVDs, and you see people saying to George, "Oh, that's so great." You know, they seem very obsequious, and I feel like Return of the Jedi, we hadn't reached that point yet, so it still has that. I mean, mean, it's full of Muppets and puppeteers and people putting all kinds of passion into creating this product. And it's a fine wrap up to the trilogy.
Yeah.
And we don't never need to watch Star Wars ever again.
And for me, it always has been and always shall be my comfort food.
So,
My first fandom, and always have a special place in my heart. And whatever they put out, I'll watch. Even if I hate it, I'll still watch it. They've
no,
got me.
And me too. I will watch everything. You know, I have friends who I have refused to anymore, but I'll still watch everything because Bill, because with me, if I'm entertained, I try not to let things, little stuff bother me,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I don't think I need to watch Rise of Skywalker again, but basically I'm in with
you. Yeah.
I'm going to watch it again, but that's me. And with that, may the force be with you all.
All right.
Make sure to check out the other offerings on Console Room 2023, 10 years in the TARDIS. 10 years, guys.
All right. Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye.